So she woke up from where she was, lying still, said, I gotta do something about where we're going. Stepped on a steam train, stepped out of the driving rain, maybe run from the darkness in the night.
Welcome to today's session. We decided the last session, which Deb covered, marriage, running a church, being part of a church plant, earthquakes, buying and selling homes. That took us 2 hours.
Yeah. That was the brief version.
And 90% of what we talked about, we weren't going to talk about.
Mm-mm.
And the stuff we were going to talk about, supernatural stuff,
We didn't talk about it.
I hardly mentioned it.
Yep.
So when we say we're going to do this today, we'd be presumptuous.
So we're not saying it. We're just going to go.
Yeah, so if you haven't watched, this is a series, Journey into the Day. Everybody that I know does it in one session, normally about 40 minutes. We're 4 hours in.
Yes. We're into adult Deb, though. We're into adult Deb now.
We're heading towards 1890s. They've just invented electricity.
All right. The earthquakes happened.
Earthquakes.
Everyone turning up at Lake Tekapo. And then also, it was only about 2 days after or was it the next day that you guys came to visit me and Steve after the earthquakes? It's the very next day or the day after? You're looking at me very blankly.
You and who?
You and Deb.
Yes.
Came to visit me and Steve.
Really?
Yes.
We're so good at that kind of thing.
You're not. I think
we are the worst ringers, phone callers, visitors.
You have to go see the Maloney's.
We're rubbish at that kind of stuff.
You're just homebodies.
We certainly are. We love home.
Yeah, you do. Yes. Yeah. I don't like being stuck at home.
No.
But I do understand that because I love home's the happy place. No. So to have them show up on our doorstep, I think it was the next day.
Really?
If it wasn't, it was the day after. Like it wasn't any longer than that.
The earthquakes?
Yep. I think it was the next day. And it was at the same time as Dave and Paula showed up. Dave and Paula.
With the car.
And hello. With their car. Yeah. So we'd lost a car.
We gave you at least 2 cars, which didn't get mentioned. Clifford the big red dog.
That was before our car got repossessed.
And the van.
Yes, we had both of those.
Both of which Steve trolleyed.
That's correct.
Also, the lamppost just was next minute it was in the middle of the road.
My first car, which we talked about in the first two, which was that Austin Maxi.
You'd want to crash that.
No, I loved that car. My grandfather put love into that car and put an LPG tank in the boot. So
hoping it would explode.
No. Steve wrote that one off.
He
wasn't his fault though.
He ruined a lot of cars.
Yeah.
The van he ruined.
No, I haven't thought about that until right this moment. This is the first time I've actually drawn that link.
Yeah, no, Clifford gone.
Yeah, Clifford, that was sad though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, we hadn't had a car for 2 years. I think we talked about it in the last one. So Steve had gone and picked up the kids after when the earthquakes happened with the neighbour's car.
Yeah.
But then we were sitting there going, we're pretty trapped.
Yeah.
The only way we have of getting out of Christchurch right now is walking.
Right.
And then we'd heard, like streams of cars lining up at the gas stations around the block and down
people
the road.
Fleeing.
And
yeah.
So at this point, we're just like, we're just going to have to deal with what we can deal with. We can't wish. And then, it had that horn.
Yeah.
Dave and Paula showed up with the car. And it was either that same day or the next day that you guys arrived. And
do you know why?
Just to check up, see how
really?
you're doing. Yeah. I don't know. Pastoring 101.
Way to go.
I know. It took them how many years?
Mike and Deb, you're like caring.
Yeah. And me and Deb just felt to go and spend some time talking alone down in one of the coldest bedrooms in the house. So we must have specifically gone there to pray.
They were all
or something. No, but this was the coldest room. Like when you went in, it was like 10 degrees. There might have been a poltergeist or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, we went in there and we just prayed really quick and short, sharp.
Yeah.
We just felt suddenly to do it, and we prayed, and both of us at the same time got a picture of Tauranga.
Is that where it happened? I thought it was in the square at New Year's or something.
No, square at New Year's was when me and Deb stood there as pillars.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yep, that's where we felt we were standing taller than everyone else and holding the city.
Yeah. Is that before the quakes?
That was before the quakes.
Wow.
That was the New Year's before the quakes.
Good job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Deb felt a storm was coming or something was coming.
Yeah. But this one, I hadn't even thought. So the earthquakes had happened, and maybe I was still in shock. But there's no way I was thinking about leaving the town.
No.
I was just thinking, okay, we just need to make this work. How are we going to make this work?
We're going to rebuild it one brick at a time.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean our house and our situation and my little nuclear family. That's how big I'd gotten. I hadn't left our house yet.
It's a worldview.
Yeah. Well, because, if you're after all that trauma, the only 2 days or the day before, you are just thinking quite insular.
Yeah.
And then Deb shows up, and of course, Deb being Deb, come on then, let's think big picture.
Perfect time.
What do you think God's saying, Deb? And I'm like, So we went down. I think we were talking and we ambled that way. But then once we were down there, everyone wasn't there.
Yeah.
So we had peace.
Yeah.
And then she goes, come on, let's just pray. So we just closed our eyes and straight away I got, in the movies they show a picture of the world and there's one country here and one country here and then there's a dotted line and a plane going over. And I saw that.
Yeah.
But we didn't end up going by plane.
No.
And I saw us going from Christchurch to Tauranga.
Oh, okay.
And there was something else about that as well.
Something about Papamara or something. Did you both get that?
No. So I got the Tauranga thing, and then that's when the Lord popped into my head the last time I was up here.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I had been to listen to Kalivana at Faith when he'd come for a visit.
Yeah.
And me and Tamsin had driven down to Papamoa during their free time, and we were walking along the beach. And I just remember, this beach is deserted.
It used to be.
What the heck? Why is there no one here? This is beautiful.
Probably the best beach in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because it's not the Mount, no one was there. And actually, do you know the attitude's still here?
It's only 12 kilometres long. Perfect golden sand.
Perfect. Yes, the Mount's got the Mount and all the shops and stuff, but this is like beautiful, beautiful beach.
Ah.
And I remember as I was walking with Tam, we'd been chatting about all other things to do with our own lives, and then I just stopped and went, can I just take a moment to go, oh my goodness, how does no one live here?
Yeah.
It was still quite a small place.
Yeah.
Now, it's unrecognisable.
Yeah.
But the Lord popped that into my head.
Okay.
So Papamoa. And Faith.
Yeah.
Faith Bible College. So we told you guys what we'd got, and Steve was like, nah, mate. Nah, not doing it. So I was like, okay.
What did I say? Something cool?
Something along those same lines. No, that can't be God. That can't be. But both of us knew that was just words coming out of your mouth, because the same thing with Steve. He might say, nah, mate. But what he means is, are you serious?
I have no memory of being inaccurate.
No, actually you haven't.
No.
But you hadn't prayed at that point.
So that's when that move thing happened.
So then it took another maybe month and a half, I think, for Steve to hear from God. Yeah. And then once he did, it was all on. I resigned. We had to do some last minute stuff to the house.
I remember he worked on the house to get it sellable.
Yeah, no, not sellable. Mum and Dad wanted to rent it because there was such a market for rentals. Okay. Because people were trying to get out of their red zone places. Mm-hmm. So we did that.
Good.
You came with the truck and took our stuff ahead of us.
See, we don't visit much, but when we visit,
they show up with a moving truck.
We visit.
And then leave straight away.
I remember our stuff was about a quarter of the truck and the rest of it was all yours.
No. I mean, we've got a family of 6 at this point, Mike. You had 10. So we'd talked to Des Short and he'd said, you know what, come up.
Yeah.
You can stay here free of charge until you find what you're going to do and get your footing. And
the price was right.
Yeah. But it wasn't really free of charge. We wanted to, like, who wants to be a freeloader? Nobody. No.
No? It wasn't my hand.
No. We didn't want a freeload, but at the same time, we're all dealing with, like, do you remember we arrived at Mount Beach? I think it was you, Deb, me and Steve and the kids. And I felt like maybe Scott and Kerry had arrived at that point. And we were just standing on the beach dressed in shorts and a T-shirt and everyone else is wearing jumpers going, this is winter?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
It was pretty tough, eh?
Yeah.
And we were standing there and someone said, man, I've got the worst pain in my neck. And then someone else was like, mine's in my back and I suddenly realised we'd spent the last year, because the September quakes were when it started, really, because those aftershocks.
Months and months.
Aftershocks, like, unnerved.
Yeah.
We'd all been tense.
Yeah, we didn't realise.
And it wasn't until we'd been there a week or 2 or a month or whatever that we started relaxing, and that's when all the pain started. That's when we're all like, because it was kind of classic. Every one of us went through and we're like, I've got that. So, yeah, I think that first initial time at Faith was different for everybody, probably. I think some people were just like, okay, what are we doing next? Let's plan. Other people are trying to give back because they're giving us so much, like free of charge accommodation.
Fixing bathrooms, painting houses. Yeah.
I think me and Steve paid for the carpet to get laid.
Yeah,
he built a deck.
Yeah.
Well, the deck was there, some stairs. Gardening, you guys, Penfolds and you guys went cray-cray. Like gardening, renovating whole units, all sorts.
We were like a super Christians.
Yeah.
And then started lecturing and causing some trouble. Yeah. And
around about the time that you started causing trouble, didn't take long, I got a job. So when I first got up there, I just wanted a break.
Yeah.
I'd been working really hard, and then with the trauma from the earthquakes, I just felt overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I felt like one more straw would break me.
Yeah.
And so I'd said to Steve on the way up, what are we doing when we get up there? Like, what are we going to... I'll go and apply for the emergency benefit, but there'll be a stand down. What are we doing? And he was like, well, I'd like to work. I know you have been, and, you're more... Like, I'm not saying you don't have to, but if you want a break, I'll work, because... you need to deal with this stuff. You haven't dealt with it. And I was like, thank you, that'll be amazing. So good. But then we got up here and the reality of the situation hit Steve as well. So for him, it had been quite an emotionally stressful time.
Yeah.
And with the kids, thinking I was trapped in a building, all of that kind of stuff. So he was dealing with all of that stuff, and he couldn't even contemplate finding a job.
No.
But meanwhile, we've got bills up the wazoo. AP's still coming out, even though we've moved cities.
So good.
It was so great. Yeah. And so I prayed about it and felt to still carry on working. So I put my name out with some temp agencies, and I got a temp job at Balance.
Is that where you got the Balance job?
Yep, just a temp. I was just coming in to do some data entry because they were a bit inundated.
How many years did that temp job last for?
12.
That's the longest temp in
It
history.
wasn't a temp. The good thing about Faith, it sent me on a leadership journey.
Okay.
On how to lead people authentically.
Yeah.
Because you can lead people, but you can lead people textbook-wise. You can lead people, I don't know, be bossy. Or you could lead people in a way that is actually serving them.
Yeah.
Which is...
That's what I do.
Yeah. Just understanding, and you have to understand yourself to lead properly.
You do.
And a little bit of navel gazing took place. Balance was amazing.
Because they trained you to be a leader, didn't they?
They saw potential and then threw money at us to get us to be the best leaders we could possibly be.
That's awesome.
Even before we'd really stepped into our full leadership jobs.
That's cool.
They saw the investment and I reaped the benefits of that.
Smart company.
Yeah. In order to put in the energy and the time involved, it took a lot of my focus.
Because we were getting pretty consumed out at Faith with helping out, lecturing and investing, believing for a move, and you were often missing out on that, weren't you?
Yeah, and you know what? That was gutting.
Yeah, so we're having
for
like
me.
super Holy Ghost time in the classroom, and you're out there moving bags of fertiliser.
Well, no, I never actually touched fertiliser. I was in an office. But it was hard because I didn't want to do it. No. I would have loved to have just spent time with Jesus and enjoyed what you guys were enjoying and actually be replenished and stuff before heading off. But God had specifically said that I should, not Steve. Yeah. And we were in the crapper. Like financially, we were struggling to even put food on the table again. Yeah. And we just pulled ourselves out of that when we were down in Christchurch. So we waited for a bit to see where the help would come from. Mm-hmm. And in the end, we felt that the Lord was saying, the help comes from me. Not me, him. So, it was like the favour of God to get that temp role. Yeah. And then the temp role got me into a role. So my boss had actually seen my CV right back before I left Christchurch. Wow. I'd sent it to her and applied for a job there. Yeah. The second time round, because I went through the temp agency, she was just taking, she didn't really care about the background. She was just like taking them.
Just snuck through.
Yeah. And then I'm there showing off my amazing skills at typing and looking pretty.
How many fingers?
Touch. All of them.
You see me type?
Yes.
No, sometimes it's two.
Oh, is it? It's like my dad. Like rabbits.
Isn't that normal?
No.
What's happening with the Holy Ghost and Jesus and everything? What's happening?
Well, I'm still like...
You're sort of out
I'm
a little
there.
bit, but you're a little bit not there.
Yeah, but when I come back, you guys catch me up. Yeah. I'm back in the game, and we were praying together still and all that kind of stuff about where God was taking things. But I'm struggling. I'm really struggling because I haven't dealt with what happened in Christchurch. No. I'm having to do something. It felt like I'm Mary being forced to be Martha. Yeah. You know, and I want to sit at his feet. Yeah. And the timing's wrong.
But you're employable, so off you go. Yeah.
But the cool thing about that was that 8 months that I had as a temp meant that when my boss created a team leader role, I just stepped into it. I didn't have to do all the testing. No. I didn't have to do like rigmarole.
And you're still at Faith then?
Yep. Yes. When I got that promotion, I was still at Faith. Okay. But that promotion enabled us to then find a rental because we could put a bond together and all of that kind of stuff. To me, Faith Bible College, as you know from my story, was the roots of my personal relationship with God.
Yeah, that's right. I had my beginnings in God too.
And so it's like a significant part of my life happened there at Faith. Yeah. I met Steve there.
I met my wife there. Yeah. We had history.
Exactly. And so it was so cool to be able to go back and give them third day. Yeah. I felt like, you're welcome. Yeah. And then realised, they're not actually too happy about it.
Well,
if anything,
some of them were and some of them weren't.
Squashing it a little and then, Yeah, and it just didn't work. It didn't go how we thought. We were surprised, but I remember just from the picture I got and the feeling I felt from the Holy Spirit, just heartbroken. Yeah. And I think at that point my grandfather had just passed away as well. Oh, yeah. So I was super close to him. Yeah. And after that happening, so earthquakes, my grandfather passing away, then that happening at Faith.
Bang, few strikes, eh?
Yeah, I got to a point where I just kind of went dead a little bit inside.
Yeah, because we sort of would come in. I was going to go to Papa Ma, so I went to Faith, but we were prepared to give it a good shot. Yeah. And our goal was to give Carly and Des 5 good years of support. Yeah. That was our goal.
But at that time, I was just like, you know what? I'm over it. I just want to find a place, make a home, and carry on with life, you know. Yeah. But I'm also over church at this point.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So because when we got there, we started going around to all the churches here, going, okay, sweet, let's get back to going to church.
Couldn't make it home.
We couldn't. I think we all tried, didn't you guys? We
went one for a while.
We tried all of them.
Yeah.
Well, I did. I know Steve was like, you do this one, mate, I can't handle it.
Yeah.
And you do this one, mate, I can't handle it.
Yeah.
Because what we were finding was that it was like a formula was being followed, like a structure. And no matter which church you went to, the same structure was being used. It was like a foolproof plan on how to run a church.
Gold. Take it to the bank.
Yeah. It took a while, but it did dawn. But also, I was getting a bit like worried because I'm like,
really?
I've never not been able to go to church. Like, I've always been able to go. I've craved going to church. I love being around other people. Why can't I settle anywhere? Why can't I?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Am I backsliding?
Yeah, I think so.
I think I'm backsliding. And
you must be.
Must be. But, you know, we've got Mike and Deb mocking us along the way and keeping us in check.
I don't think we've
and I think
doing no.
Yes, 100%.
Really?
And it's exactly what we needed. And I think that enabled me to go, okay, it's not just me. If it was me backsliding, then it would just be me, and everyone else would be like, what are you talking about? Like, you know, what are you actually talking about? But it wasn't just me, and I just realised, I guess, we used to say it all the time, I've been ruined for anything else.
Yeah.
But this was the walking it out of, I've been ruined for anything else.
And you realise that you only fit in the round hole. Yeah. It's horrible.
Yeah, it was. It was really, it kind of felt a little bit like you'd been set adrift.
Yeah.
And we kind of had, and like for you guys, I know.
Kind of majorly.
Majorly.
Yeah.
Like just, like you had no like real definition or purpose or vision.
No one wanted us. We had no money and we were homeless. Yeah. Apart from that, it
was great.
Things were going pretty good.
Whereas it was slightly different for us, but still not great. Like even though I'm at this job now, coming up to just over a year of working full-time.
Wow.
I'm like, I hardly know anyone. I know people, but there's no depth to the relationships with anybody. And it's me, Steve, and the kids. And me and Steve's relationship is rocky at best.
Yeah, we saw that in the last video.
Yeah. And it carried on. There's a thing. Yeah. It carried on. And so I'm looking around going, is this it? So this is it. This is our life right now, is sitting at a beautiful place in the world. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for that part.
Yeah.
I've got a cool job, good money.
Got a job.
It was keeping us our heads above water and all that kind of stuff. The kids are loving school and loving life.
Yeah.
So what's the problem? And just feeling like I was in limbo at that point. Just a no man's land. Hearing from God.
Yeah.
Spending lots of time with him. I'd go for long walks, praying and speaking in tongues. I'd lots and lots of hours in my car driving around worshipping, because those of you who know me know well.
You've killed half the planet with your carbon
emissions.
Emissions. With
God
your
bless
times.
my emissions. I like to see it as little bubbles of love fumes.
Love fumes, yes.
Yeah, that was a tough period. We were just keeping our heads above water. We weren't flush.
That's pretty standard.
Yeah, with 4 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, and starting from scratch.
Yeah.
100%.
What were you expecting?
Yeah, trying to get ahead a little bit.
A little bit.
We hadn't realised how expensive Tauranga was to live in either.
It was way cheaper then than it is.
It was.
It was half the price.
It was.
Yeah.
And now...
Is it over half? No,
it's worse than Auckland.
It's worse than double what it was. So good.
So good.
Yeah.
Everything's meh. Me and Stephen's relationship's really not in a good space.
Yeah.
But I'm hiding a lot of that stuff from everybody
And
because...
you didn't find a churchy home?
Nah. We didn't know, but there was more rock bottom to come. But
that was the beginning of the bottom.
That was only the top of the bottom.
Yes. It got worse.
It did. It actually got worse, but we didn't know that at the time. No. So at the time we're thinking, it's just a period of time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping.
Shouldn't last more than 10 years.
Mike.
Sorry, jumping ahead.
Like it was so tough. And in the spirit, it felt tough. Like, it was fine to talk to Jesus. That's normal.
Yeah.
But you could feel the heaviness of it and the like burden almost of the day not going anywhere. Just sitting. Heavy.
Super frustrating.
I felt for you guys the most because I feel like you carried, well, and still do, this day. That's been your purpose since the day you heard it.
We're just always about giving it away.
Yeah. And it wasn't, no one wanted it.
No room in the inn.
It was free. And no one wanted the free gift.
Maybe we should have charged.
Yeah. I think that's what we're going to do from now on. And I guess, in a way, my life is, well, it is, running parallel with this. Like, I'm learning all this leadership stuff, but I'm like, what's the point? 12 years of doing the same thing. It was like Groundhog Day. I got my job in 2012, April 2012, and in January, February 2014, Scott called Steve up and said, dude, there are so many jobs with EQC down here.
Yeah.
They need to get this stuff over the line. It's mean money. Get down here.
That's the earthquake commission after the quakes. That was big money.
Yeah.
That's where all the money went. Didn't build any buildings, but we paid all these random people huge amounts of money to walk around with clipboards. Yep.
And inspect cracks.
Pretty much that's what it was. It was so bad, Steve would get up at the meetings and go, what are we doing with it? Trying to screw his own job. I've got a clipboard of phone in the car and a huge salary and I'm just looking at cracks that are already there. Why are we getting paid?
I feel like I'm cheating someone. Did you really see a crack though? And I remember that in the end, that's why he ended up stopping, was
his conscience.
He said, yeah, because he'd be like, no, that crack is a definition of what you guys have trained me as earthquake.
Yeah.
And they're like, no.
No.
And he's like,
you're imagining.
No, you need to change your report. And he was like, no. So he wrote down what he thought, then saw the final product and the report had been changed. And he was like, no.
A lot of money got spent wisely. They employed builders from foreign countries who would go and repaint your house. They'd paint around your pictures. They wouldn't even take them off the wall. I mean, it was done to a high level.
Oh, it was crazy times, eh?
Crazy.
No, actually, I got the timing wrong. This is 2013.
Yes.
And I've been in my job for about a year.
Yeah.
And Steve gets this call from Scott. And I said, are you wanting us all to all move down there? And he goes, well, I just feel like maybe I won't even like the job. Or, like, I'll get down there and I'll be like, nah, man, we should not be down here. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like, and so he goes, what if I go first?
Yeah.
Get stuck into the job, see what I can do about, finding any other extra work I could do once that finishes, all that kind of stuff. And then I'll give you the nod and then you guys can come down. So I'm like, sweet.
Because nothing's happening in Papamala.
Nothing. Oh. Zilch. Mm. So I become a single mum for pretty much a year. Like, we got that call from Scott in February. Stephen was down by the end of February. He didn't come home permanently until December.
Wow.
So we enlisted Hannah, asked Hannah if she would be my kind of nanny.
Yeah. Hannah's my daughter, for those of you that don't know.
So Hannah came and would be at my house for the kids coming home from school and then stay there until I got home from work. And she'd have dinner prepped, done, ready to go on the table. And she saved my life. If I hadn't had to do that, because there was one school holidays where we had to put them in YMCA.
Yeah. With the village people.
Yeah. And my kids were like, I'm never going back there again. It was horrible. Like, it was just, So I couldn't have done probably the next few years without Hannah Maloney.
Yeah.
Love you, Hannah.
It was only about 6 years she did that for, was it?
It's a long time. The kids, I mean...
They've forgotten all about it.
They'd have totally not forgotten.
They've blanked her out because she's about 5'5", 40 kilos and pretty strict.
Yes, but not in a mean, nasty way. And I told you not to. No, consistent, stubborn way.
Oh, super consistent.
Very consistent.
Oh my goodness.
But also, like. Like, the kids were like, when they saw her last year, some of them hadn't seen her for maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
And they were like, She hasn't changed.
She doesn't.
She looks exactly the same as she did years ago.
She hasn't changed since she was 17.
I think she looks younger.
Yeah, possibly. Well, she's only 40. The other day she went to get a scratch and they wouldn't sell it to her because she didn't look 18. Back to the story.
Yes. So
Steve's in Christchurch working.
So he goes down, hates it. Hates being in Christchurch, really stressed out, struggling mental health wise.
He's living with my oldest son.
He's living with your older son.
Yeah.
That was probably about the only good thing he had to say about the whole place.
Yeah.
And like just hates it. Yeah. Calling me up going, I want to come back. And I'm like, okay, so we're not moving down here?
He's earning bucket loads of money.
Huge amounts.
Working with his best buddy.
Yeah. We were now no longer in debt.
Yeah.
We were saving money. And we even had money where I didn't have to think about buying kids a pair of socks.
So he's missing the kids and stuff, the whole family life?
We're all missing him. Like
it's a long time.
Really felt it. And he'd come up for visits. And when we had to take him back to the airport.
He didn't want to go.
No. Well, not just him. I'd have crying kids all the way back.
Yeah.
Crying themselves to sleep, and I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
I had to deal with it with my dad.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's breaking my heart seeing my kids like that, but at the same time, we were supposed to give this a go, and it was keeping us out of debt, and we were saving money for the first time.
Yeah.
So, because I'm working and he's working.
So
first time ever since...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just the way the devil intended.
Yeah. And then he quit. It just got too much. He couldn't stomach it. He couldn't stomach what he was seeing.
Yeah.
So he quit and came back up and said, that's it, I'm not going back to that job.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, so clearly we're not moving back down. You know, that's the way it is. And I'm kind of secretly okay with that because
you got your job.
I'm actually starting to like it now.
Yeah.
Because I know my stuff now. Yeah. I understand the business.
Yeah.
And people are going, oh my gosh, leadership, here's some stuff, learn this.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, soaking it up. Yeah. So I'm like, whew, close call, we're not moving to Christchurch. No offence, guys in Christchurch, but, you know, we'd got established.
It's cold and horrible.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But anyway, I'm relieved.
Yeah, good.
We had a great Christmas away up north.
Super.
And Steve starts saying to me, I think we need to all move back to Christchurch.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, what? You said it was horrible.
Yeah.
He goes, it was horrible because I missed you and the kids.
Oh, but if you were there.
If you were there, it wouldn't be horrible. I'm like, are you sure? Because I also heard complaining about the roads. Like, it's just depressing there. No offence, Christchurch people. But this is what the feelings that conjured up for him.
Obviously incorrect.
Completely must be.
Yeah.
And he was like relaying those feelings to me. And I'm like, and now you want to go? Like, I don't get it. And he goes, well, I've applied for a job down there with some company, I can't remember now.
Yeah.
And he goes, it looks like I'm going to get it as a sales rep. And I was like, so we'd both be working still. And he was like, yeah.
A sales rep?
Mm-hmm.
Steve?
Yep.
Okay. Who did that job interview?
I don't know. But it was his vast experience in the building industry.
It was.
So I'm like, okay. And he goes, I want to give you a break. I want to be able to work, support all of us, keep us out of debt still.
Praise the Lord. And
then you can have some breathing room. Enjoy Lily before she goes to school.
The youngest child,
Yeah.
Because she's what, 17, 18?
Not at that point.
No, how old is she?
She was like 5.
Okay, so I was close.
Actually, yeah, she was already at school, so maybe 6.
Okay.
Yeah, he just wanted me to enjoy Lily because I missed out on all those firsts, you know, having to go to work. So I said no initially. No, I really don't want to. I love my job. The kids would hate it.
Yeah. They've got earthquake trauma syndrome still.
Yeah. But it's a lot less and they're a bit more inclined to go visit. But live there, that's a whole different ball game. And I was like, are you sure about this? But he was so insistent. And it was about 2 months of him going, no, I saw a truck the other day and it had this on the side. I think it's a sign. Like, it is literally a sign painted on the side of the truck.
It was. He was right.
It is a sign. And we were at the beach one day and God says, do as he's asking.
Okay.
So I was like, great. Okay. That's all I needed. So I said to him, let's do it. So I resigned from a job that I cried the day I
just
had
getting some traction there.
And even my boss was like, what?
Yeah.
You know, as difficult as things had been, it was like I just started making momentum. And I was like, I've got to try this for Steve and for the kids and for the family. We're going back down. We'd saved about 10 grand, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
That all went on the moving costs to get down there.
Yeah.
And we got down there. So the way it worked was, because I had to finish up my job, I gave 2 months notice.
Yeah.
So that they had plenty of time to recruit, hire someone else, and maybe even have me train them.
Yeah.
So there was that. Then we had to get all the furniture moved down.
Yeah.
But we could probably get down there quicker than the furniture.
Yeah.
So we decided to do a bit of a split journey, and Steve stayed with his dad and the kids, took the kids, stayed with his dad. I tied up all the loose ends up here.
Yeah.
And met a friend of mine, Amy, who was my best friend for the next, I don't know, we're still friends. So up until that point, I'd made no connections.
Yeah.
And it was within the last month that I made, this chick's actually, I could get on with her.
Yeah.
First person I'd come across other than, outside of our circle. And I'm like, really? I've got to go? So it was actually really hard. I think the last night I spent with you guys, it was so hard saying goodbye to you guys.
Really?
Yeah. I think Deb could see the struggle. And she said, you've always got a place here. You can always come, blah, 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 which was lovely.
Yeah.
But I knew that God had told me to do this. So I was doing it, being obedient, but because I had to make my way down the country. So I left going through Te Puke. Not a nice place, really. We'll just cut that bit out. So I left going through Te Puke, and I remember it was one of the worst storms we've ever had. There were multiple times in my journey where I had to pull over because the rain was so thick you couldn't see the car in front.
Yeah, it can get like that.
Yeah, and it was one of those. I then grabbed the kids. Steve flies down to Christchurch to the house we were staying in prior, because it's still owned by my parents.
Oh, back into the house.
And tenants had it, who I knew through work. So weird. But when he got there, the state of it.
Chuck them out?
They were already out.
Yeah.
And they'd left it in a state. The grass was up to above your knees. And the house just looked tired and worn and all that hard work he'd put into it. And time had happened.
Yeah.
So he then had to bring in all the furniture. There's stuff that's breaking and falling off. He's getting stressed out. I get to Wellington with the kids, pop them on a plane. They get airsick, vomited all the way over to Steve. He greets them at a stressed out state, takes them back home. And, of course, they've sat down in Christchurch for the first time since the earthquakes. And freak out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Micah, constant anxiety, Ruby, anxiety. Zeke and Lily, not really, because they barely remember them.
No.
But huge anxiety for Micah, really struggling. When I get there, he is in not a good state. He's stressed, he's frustrated, the kids are not in a good place.
How's this new job?
Hasn't started it yet.
Okay.
He's about to start it. But I get a job with Inland Revenue. But I think we might have been just a few days of being there. And I could tell Steve had a really tough day, and it was overwhelming, and mental health-wise, he was not in a good space. But the kids had gone to bed. We're watching, I don't know. We're watching some series on TV, and he turns to me and he goes, I think we've made a mistake. I don't think we're supposed to be here. I think we need to go back. And just a whole series of events leading up to that, plus also just the constant turmoil of our relationship. But the fact that I've just given up something I really enjoyed because he said he believed it was the right thing to do. God's told me to do it. And I'm now looking at this man. We've just finally unpacked our last box.
Well, it's happened pretty quick. Yeah.
And he goes, we've made a mistake. We need to go back. And I remember just, you know, when you get that ringing in your ears and everything just goes quiet. I just remember staring at him for ages, so much so that he was like, babe, like, you're okay.
You're overload processing.
Like, I don't, like, so I just said to him, are you kidding me? And he was like, nah, like, have you seen the kids? They're not coping. And I was like, no, but we knew that was going to happen. Well, I told you that was going to happen. And he was like, I know, but like seeing it's different and I can't handle that and work's horrible and I'm not enjoying that and this is just wrong. It's just wrong. Us being here isn't right. Like, we need to go back. And I didn't actually say another word. I just took my handbag, took my keys, got in the car and drove off. And just cried out to the Lord, because to me, that was the straw. That was the straw for me. Years of the stuff from the earthquakes happening, this happening, that
Jobs,
happening,
houses,
the move, the working really hard and not being able to just take a moment to take a deep breath, and then to spend the only savings we've had since we were living in Auckland prior to moving to Christchurch, like decades before, or a decade before, finally had that savings and we just spent it on the move. So I drove round in circles. I think I called Deb Maloney at one point, like, just not understanding what I should do. Like, what is God doing? Like, what are you doing, God? Yeah. And then that became our trial separation.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I went back.
So what happened physically?
I think we stayed there.
Yeah.
I carried on working at Inland Revenue.
Yeah.
He carried on with his job. I think I gave him the silent treatment for about a week as I tried to process what I was doing. But in this time, Mike is having nightmares. I'm having to be pulled out of my new job to go down to the school. My new job was by the airport. School was in Beckenham.
Miles away.
So having to go down to the school and pick Micah up because she's having a full-blown...
So trial separation, how did that work?
So he goes, mate, you're going to get, like, are we going to talk about this? And I said, I tell you what, I agree with you. I don't think we should be here. Let's go back. So it's been a period of time. I needed time to think about it. So, yeah, I don't think me and Steve talked for about a week. And then he was like, we need to talk about this. And he goes, you need to talk to your parents and see if we can borrow money. Yeah. And I'm like, what for? And he goes, to move back up. We're going to move back up, right? And I'm still trying to just deal with the fact that I've just quit this job I loved. Yeah. And now we're going to be going back up to what? I don't have a job.
No house, no job.
Yeah. Like, we haven't even been gone. At this stage, we'd been gone. I'd left the premises of work 4 weeks earlier.
Wow.
Like we haven't, they joke about it to this day that I'm the only person that did a turnaround of leaving Balance and going back. Yeah. Because I was back at Balance 6 weeks after I resigned.
For those of you that don't live overseas and don't live in New Zealand, the move was from one island to another. It's, I don't know how many miles it is. It's a lot of miles.
Yeah.
You got to go on a boat, and it's not simple.
It's not a simple move.
No.
So it was going to cost another 10 grand to get back up.
Yeah.
And so he was like, you need to borrow money off your parents. And I'm like, I can't ask them for $10,000. Like, are you joking? Yeah. And he was like, well, we've got no other choice. We have to get back up there. There's nothing else we can do. The bank's not going to lend it to us. And I'm like, for a good reason. We can't afford to pay that back. Because you don't have a job, you know. If you go back up, he doesn't have a job. And in the end, the pressure that he put on to just do it, I was like, you know what? I need to get away. I'm going to go back up for a weekend. You can look after the kids, and I'm going to see if I can get my job back. Let's start there.
So at least you have something to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I arranged that to arrive on a Friday and then come back on the Sunday so that I was back for work.
Mm.
Went up there, went straight from the airport to Sharon, went into her office, and I said, what are the chances of me getting my job back? And she was like, what job? I hired Amy, who's the person that I'd become friends with.
Buddy.
I'd hired her because to me, she was like a copy of you in leadership, style. She's taken over that role. There is no other role.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can you help me out? I need income and I need it instantly when I get up here. I don't have time to fluff around looking for another job.
Yeah.
And she said, well, we've got someone leaving who's a customer service rep who was in the team that I had been leading.
Oh, yeah. So demotion.
Demotion.
Cool.
She goes, I could get you into that role. I could pay you at the top of the band.
Yeah.
But that's the best I can do.
Well, that's cool.
So I was like, I'll take it.
Yeah. What a good woman.
Yeah. So I get that. I find out that Amy is living at the Mount in an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment by herself.
So you can share there?
So she goes, you could just move into this if you need to come up first.
And do some work, get some money.
And then you can look for a place for you and the kids and Steve to live in. So I'm still like, because I'm still not fully understanding what's happening. And it was back in the flight down to Christchurch that I realised that for me, it was over. Yeah. I couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. At least to me, I needed space. I needed breathing room. I needed time to focus on God, what He's wanting. I needed to recover, like so many things I needed. Yeah. So when I got back home, came back from the airport, the kids went to bed, and I said to Steve, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go back up. I've got a job. It's a customer service rep, so it's a pay cut. It's a demotion in responsibilities. And little did I know it would take 2 more years to become a team leader again. Yeah. And that was hard. That was real hard. But while I'm up there, I'll look for a place for us to all live, and we can see this as a trial separation. You can stay here with the kids until the next school holidays, because we'd moved in the Easter school holidays. Yeah. So I was like, wait until the July, and then you can send them up, and we'll then talk about our future. Yeah. But in my heart, I knew it was over. I just needed some time to really let that sink in. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. I drove back up with as much of my stuff I could fit in the car as possible and started working as a customer service rep and looking for places to live, and got one a week before the kids were due to fly in. 4-bedroom, perfect house, right in Papamom, right by the school. It was like boom, 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 boom. Yeah. That was off the books. It wasn't done through an agency. So the lady came and met me at my work and interviewed me. It was just perfect. It all seemed perfect.
What does Steve do? Is he working in Christchurch?
So he'd quit because he wasn't able to cope working. Yeah. So I was still supporting everybody, obviously, with my income down, but sending it down there. Well, not sending it. He had access to it. It's modern now. But my parents are like, well, we're going to sell that house. If you guys aren't going to live in it, we're going to sell it.
Because they don't want to rent it again.
No. So, Steve, could you do some things to it to fix it? There was EQC damage to something.
I think he did some repairs and they basically paid him to do it.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yeah. So he started doing that in this period of time while the kids are at school. And I finally caved after a lot of pressure from Steve and asked my parents for a loan of 10 grand to get us back up to Tauranga. And at this point, my parents are like, yeah, you need to get back up here. Your kids are not in a good space down there.
Okay. Well, that's cool. They've saved you a few times.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
I love my parents.
And they sold that house?
They sold that house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which would have given them the money to give you the loan. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
It worked out well in the end, and but that was probably one of the most stressful times in my life. Yeah. That period of going down, moving down, then turning around and moving back up, and then bringing the kids up. And then once the kids came up, Steve's like, right, well, we need to work out how I'm getting up there because we don't have enough money for flights.
Yeah.
So how am I going to actually get to Papamoa and back with you guys?
How is he going to do that?
And then that's when I said to him, I told him that to me it was over. I didn't want that to happen. He was welcome to come up to Papamoa, but he wouldn't be living at my house.
Yeah.
And then, of course, had to tell the kids. And I got
good times.
Deb Maloney over for that because I could not do that by myself. Steve's still down in...
Thank you for not ringing me.
Oh, she was there for the birth of them all.
Yeah. She's responsible for
it's her fault.
Most of this is on her.
That was probably, out of every conversation, every decision, everything I did during that period of time, to sit in that lounge, look at my children and tell them that me and Steve were splitting up. That probably was the most heartbreaking thing.
Yeah.
And Micah just being so bewildered, like, why?
Yeah.
And I was bewildered that she was bewildered. To me, it was so obvious that me and Steve were like...
Kids just don't see it, though.
Well, and we actually did some good. We would keep that behind closed doors. We didn't try to do it in front of them, but I still knew that kids pick up on stuff. How did they not know the tension in the house?
It's mum and dad.
And it's years of it, which I think is the reason why they didn't realise it. It was their whole lives there'd been tension between me and Steve. It was normal. It was a normal feeling. And so for them, they didn't recognise it. Yeah. But that was tough. That was horrifically tough. I had all the kids crying themselves to sleep that night. And
how do you feel?
Like the worst person in the world.
Yeah.
And the kids, of course, naturally, and they'll be hearing this possibly for the first time, were saying, why, Mum? Why? Like, why are you guys, like, why? And the answer I gave them, and I would still give them for years and years and years to come, is it's actually none of your business why. That's actually between me and your dad. All you guys need to know is it's got nothing to do with you guys. Nothing at all. And we love you both very much.
They were never the problem.
It was never the children.
No.
This has got to do with me and Steve.
And you're missing, obviously, stuff out.
Huge stuff.
Yeah.
Like I said, that we need to move back to Tauranga statement was the straw. There was a whole series of events leading up to that. And I'm just being respectful to his family. There's lots more to it. One, my children could watch this, and I don't really want to go into the personal stuff between me and their father, because he was still, one thing he always remained was a doting, loving father. Those kids knew they were loved by their dad. There was never a doubt in their mind. You know, yes, even when they had clashes, they still knew he loved them, you know. So, like, I don't want to interfere with that, and his family and friends who know him. This is not anything about that, but me and him, it was not working.
Volatile.
Very. It was lots and lots of arguments, lots and lots of disagreements on how we thought, what God was saying. Even when I had that conversation with him over the phone, unfortunately, because he was in Christchurch, and then saw him subsequently time and time after that where he questioned my decision and all that kind of stuff, I walked out that door loving that man. It was because I loved him that I stayed so long. I just wanted him to understand how much God loved him. And I knew that once he got a revelation of that, it would be radical for him. It would change his entire world. And so I left still loving him, and he left this world with me still loving him. And I will probably love him forever. That's never changed. What's changed is my investment into that. And I decided that my investment into that was just the toll it was taking on me was too much. I couldn't. It was starting to erode who I was. Like even my behaviour towards the kids, I was avoiding home to avoid Steve because he was a stay-at-home dad. And the kids were just getting a half-assed me. They weren't getting the full mum. And I wanted to be there, present, front and centre in their lives. And yeah, the next few years was that. Me and the kids, probably some of the best years of my life was me and the kids finding our new normal.
Steve moved up?
He did. He moved up almost immediately after I had that conversation because he wanted to see me face to face and talk it through as well. But I wouldn't budge.
He stayed at our place.
He came and lived with you.
He said to me, "Can I stay with you guys?" And yeah, because we're like buddies. And I didn't pick the side.
No.
I tried to.
You were friends with both of us.
Support both.
Yeah.
Loved both of you. Believed in both of you. And I said, "Well, how long do you want to come for?" He said, "Well, just till I get on my feet." Well, like 6 years later.
Actually, though.
and to be honest, he was the best house guest we've ever had. My son came up and he had cancer op, and I needed the room. So we sort of had to actually prize Steve out. He didn't want to go.
No.
That was hard, but that 6 years, that's a good effort.
Yeah. It's coming to stay for a while.
Yeah, but I do feel bad about that because I said to him a lot, while I have a roof, you have a roof.
And he ended up moving closer to my place, so closer to the kids.
Walking distance, yeah.
And closer to where he ended up ultimately working.
Yeah.
So it's actually ended up a good place for him. But at this point, he didn't have that job. He had no job. How long? It was about a year or so, before he got a job?
I don't know. He ended up mitre 10 in town, mitre.
Yeah. Was that while he was still living with you?
Yeah, he did some tempy stuff building, but he's having that back issues and really struggled with the building. Yeah.
So ankylosing spondylitis, that rears its head constantly. It's like it's something that never goes away. It actually just gets worse with age. And thankfully he didn't have in a wheelchair type condition, but it still did flare up everything. So he was having constant health issues and wasn't able to see the kids. And so just remember, for Zeke and Lily, their only memory is Steve being at home.
Yeah.
They don't remember me being at home and Steve being the wage earner. Like Micah does and Ruby vaguely does, but Zeke and Lily don't. And so for them, they were having cold turkey dad withdrawals.
Yeah.
Like 1 minute they're down in Christchurch and it's just him and them.
Yeah.
And the next minute they've flown up to Tauranga. They're with me now and Steve's got no place.
Yeah.
He's having to stay with the Maloneys and see the kids in the weekend.
Fate worse than death.
It was real tough. And I really felt for everybody. But I think, took on the blame for all of it.
Yeah.
Beat myself up about it. There are definite stuff that happened leading up to that made that final decision. But I haven't talked about that with people. And I won't. But it doesn't mean it was my fault.
You didn't quit straight away, Deb.
No, I loved that man for 20-something years in a marriage, just trying to make it work. I even gave up temporarily and went back because those kids had to be born. But yeah, it was a really tough time because we'd
hardest decision you've ever had to make.
Oh, well, you guys knew, you saw the aftermath of it all, of just tears and just hurting, that he was hurting. It hurt me to see him hurting, to see the kids hurting, and I'm like, you've done this. This is your fault.
Yeah, it's something you had to carry.
And I did for a long, long time.
Till about last week.
Yeah. He speaks the truth. Actually, it's...
Telling the story's got some of it out. Hey?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just what you thought. A lot of people thought stuff.
Yeah. There was a lot of stuff Steve was telling me that other people were saying. There was a lot of other people telling me what they were saying. You know, there was a whole mismatch of whirlwind of misinformation, misunderstanding, and what reality was, I couldn't do it. And I'm not a weak person.
No, listen to your story. You know, like I've been there for most of that story. It's, you've done pretty good.
Yeah.
And I love Steve. Hey.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had to let a lot of that go. The misunderstanding that people had, there was just no way. And the misunderstanding that
you're never going to win that discussion.
I can't. How am I? It's always going to be him saying one thing and me saying another.
It's not going to work.
It's just not going to work. So I let go of all of that and just got on. But what I did do, because I felt so bad that I was the one that had actually stepped out to say, no, that's it, I've had enough, and walked out that door, and the kids were suffering for it, I said to Steve, tell you what, Amy has bought a house down the road. She needs a flatmate. Yeah. What if I move out? Because at this stage he's working Sundays to Thursdays.
Yeah.
So his weekends are Friday, Saturday.
I used to go on the weekends to the house for a start.
So I said, what if I move out on a Thursday morning?
Yeah.
Move into Amy's house Thursday night. Yeah. I stay Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, and on Sunday morning you head off to work with your stuff and I move back in.
They happened for a long time, eh?
7 years we did that.
Yeah.
I lived out of a suitcase for 7 years.
Yeah. Well, did you form an attachment to that suitcase?
I still have it. I actually am living out of it still.
That's a good suitcase.
It's the best suitcase. It has lasted. That's like 9 years now.
Yeah.
But no, like we did that for 7 years and I don't regret doing that at all. Like we rotated around the kids. That was not the kids' fault that we split up. So it kept them in a stable place and we rotated around them.
Yeah.
And during that time...
Probably the best of the bad. That was the best of the bad situation.
Yeah. That was the most stable in a storm for them. Yeah. And that's what it was majority about, was making the kids feel a little bit better about a bad situation.
And then Hannah there.
Yeah,
still.
So good.
Yeah.
Faithfully, Hannah still came along and looked after the kids, went after school. But the house that we moved into, where that started happening with Steve moving in, that house, my parents were able to buy with the house sale of the one down in Christchurch. Oh. So I rented off my parents for a few years, and then in 2019 was finally able to buy, and I bought the house off my parents. So, yeah, probably 5 years after me and Steve split up, finally was able to buy that house at age 40-something.
And you still got it?
Still got it.
You're a homeowner.
I am. Oh. And that house has crazy changed in price. Like, because it's so close to the beach.
You're a millionaire.
Oh, well. In assets. But yeah, that became a stable home environment for the kids. It still is. And
that's probably the home they remember now.
Yeah. They do remember the Christchurch one because we went back and visited it as well. But like I'll talk about it coming up. But the problems we had, well, not that we had, the problems that Ruby had in the next few years. A lot of that was because of the turbulence of the Christchurch earthquake coming up, starting a new life, getting bullied, then having to go back down, only to turn around a term later and come back up, and then bullied again at the same school she got bullied at the first time.
Kids love that stuff.
Like it was just constant change, me and Steve splitting up, whole bunch of other things happening in a row. Finally, she cracked, and hormonal as well. Like, as a lot of parents out there with teenage kids know, they go temporary insane during that period. And
we didn't let them. Deb was too strict.
I mean,
they weren't allowed to be hormonal.
Well, they were allowed to be show their emotions, but my kids were great.
It's a massive change of life for kids.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And
hard in a stable environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Nigel Latta talked about it. That's where I used that statement during the teenage period, just if you treat them all like they are clinically insane until they come out, it will help you. And it did. I just kept thinking, they're all crazy.
Take some of the ouch out of it.
Yeah, because then I'm like, oh, look at that crazy thing they're doing. Yeah. But yeah, that's the next probably big hurdle, was starting to deal with that with Ruby. And I have Ruby's permission to talk about that stuff. Yeah, because she sees that period of her time as something that she can share and help other people with.
Wow.
But yeah, whether it was trauma from the earthquakes or...
That was all of it.
All of those changes and the bullying and everything else. Ruby started... She had an eating disorder and she started cutting herself. She would like, if she can make this help, like if this can help someone, she's more than willing to let me.
Ruby's Deb's second eldest daughter.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I think Ruby was 13 when it first started.
Yeah.
Well, when we were made aware of it, which was... just different comments have been happening, different things and behaviours. We'd noticed big baggy clothes being worn, long sleeves in summer, which made me go, question a few things.
It's paradise, it's shorts and T-shirts.
Exactly. And she was Miss Beachy Girl, wanting to go out and surf and stuff. And yet she's wearing a hoodie and trackies in summer when it's boiling. So, yeah, there was lots of question mark. But... thinking that she was just going through a bit of a depressing time, and then hearing about a boy who I shall keep nameless, but that boy was starting to have some influence and he's quite dark. He was struggling with suicidal thoughts when she met him, and I know this because she told me that, but I didn't realise they were spending so much time together, and she started going on to the same kind of sites as he was, and they were about suicide and how to do it and all that kind of stuff. So the cutting and stuff, that all came up, and the eating. So
eating disorder, cutting.
That came up first.
Yeah.
And that's when we would be at dinner, and then suddenly she'd excuse herself from the table, go to the bathroom, and a couple of times we'd either smelt vomit or Micah had heard her. So I confronted her about that. And it was the eating disorder I confronted her about. And I said, is there anything else you're not telling me? And that's when she pulled up her sleeves and showed me the scars from the cutting. But it got worse because I think it was about a week later, I get called into the school because she's bled through some of her clothes. And it's all the top of her thighs from knee to almost hip. And it's deep. Like someone's taken a whole big knife, gouged. And I'm just like, that's unrecoverable. Like that's plastic surgery. I just remember looking at her and just weeping and going, why would you do this to yourself? And it got even worse. So soon after that was when, now where were we? I think... then we'd had a working bee that day. I'd been at work and my parents had come over to look after the kids. And my mum had sent me a text saying, just keep an eye on Ruby. She's like, something's a little bit off with her today. I don't know what. She was very quiet, which is unlike her around my parents. She was always upbeat. And then got home and was asking some questions. And she... just came out and said, Mum, I've taken a whole bunch of pills and I'm freaking out. And I was like, what? Like, what pills? Panadol. Just Panadol and Nurofen. And she'd been stocking up on them. We wonder where we were going with all our pills disappearing. She'd stocked up on them, taken a whole bunch, and now she's freaking out. And like, I'm freaking out, so... She'd done a vomit, like, in front of us, actually. So we knew at least that had happened. But I got my friend Amy to come over, look after the rest of the kids, and then I jumped in the car, took her to the A&E. Probably the best thing I could have done because, one, it reassured me that she was okay. She hadn't done any damage to her liver or kidneys or anything like that. But also, we were released and we were allowed to come back home. The crisis team got involved because it was an attempt straight away she went into CAMS, which is Child Adolescent Mental Health Services.
Yeah.
And CAMS, I know for a lot of people have not been good, but for us were brilliant.
Okay.
Like they just came to the party. They were like chucking stuff at us of things that would help: therapy, horse therapy, eating disorder clinics, like anything we needed. But all I could get her to at this point was counselling, which was kind of almost, she didn't have a choice on that one. And next to follow, it was about a 2-year journey of thinking we were all good, and she tried again. But kind of a half-assed attempt, and her counsellor was kind of so shocked. She said to her, like, I thought we were making progress. And Ruby had the mentality, or said to us, oh, I don't even know why I did that. And then I just started hearing some great stuff from the counsellor, like, Ruby's doing so well, we're making progress, this is going good. Ruby it seemed like we were getting her back. We were finally starting to see the Ruby we saw before, we're starting to see it. And I'm not fully, but we're heading that way. Whereas up until that point, dark. We had stopped her seeing the boy that she'd been seeing. Like, he was at school, so it was impossible not to see him, but hang out with him after school was not a thing. They were put in different classes. We got that organised, and as soon as that started happening, huge difference, massive difference. We monitored her social media, so she had 2 accounts at that point, and one of them was the dodgy one that was watching dodgy sites, so closed that down. Just lots of things like that. And yeah, I remember one of the most helpful things that one of the counsellors told us was about Ruby's eating disorder, because Ruby had left the room, and I was like, the counsellor was like, how are you doing, Mum? And she's the first time anyone had asked me. And I said to her, I'm not coping. I'm finding this really difficult. Like, this beautiful, beautiful girl who, like, we had to fight to bring into the world. She tried to take herself out from the moment she was born, who's she's the heartbeat of our family. She was the laughter and the sorrow and all of that. She's trying to take herself out. Like, what have I done wrong, taking on full blame as I do? Like, what have I missed? Like, what's happened here? And I'm in panic mode, and I don't have anybody to talk to about it that's going through it. Like, at this stage, I didn't know of anyone else. And I'm saying to this lady, is there help for parents? Because there's help for the kids, but parents need help. We don't know what we're doing. And the lady was like, oh, I'm so sorry. There actually isn't. There isn't any support. There is for people whose kids have died from suicide. But for kids, parents who are dealing with kids trying to, no support. So she said, what's one of the things you're really struggling with? And I was like, this eating disorder, do I make her eat food, or is that making it worse? Do I let her dictate to us? Like,
so practical questions.
Yeah, and I'm pussyfooting around everything because I'm so scared of like triggering her and having her go, right, that's it, today's the day, like it felt horrible. Everything, my whole body was on high alert. It was kind of like waiting for the next aftershock all the time. And this lady just turned to me and she goes, oh, I can tell you something really quick and easy that will help. We teach people that the eating disorder is a bully, and that bully sits on their shoulder and it says to them, you're fat, you're ugly, you're horrible, you're this, you're that, you're the other thing, you're stupid, no one cares about you being here. All of that stuff. The only way you're going to look good is if you get rid of that food. Just don't eat, just starve, and it sits there telling her lies. And I was like, okay, well, I'll give that a try, But she said, when you're addressing her, address her. When you're addressing the eating disorder, address the bully.
Oh, yeah.
It will make a difference. Well, that night, she was sitting in the lounge, and we'd made this rule. She had to sit there with a plate of food, and she wasn't allowed to leave the lounge for 2 hours after she ate that. So she couldn't throw it up. And she had to eat it. And she was like, she manifested, like, you can't make me do this. Like she just, it was like, and I'm looking at it and I'm seeing it as the bully. And I'm looking at her and I almost felt joy because for the first time I knew what I was looking at.
I'm a tactic here.
I'm like, that's not my daughter. That's the eating disorder talking. My daughter doesn't hate me. And I remember, probably not a good idea at the time, but it was almost like I laughed and I said, oh yeah, how horrible am I making you sit there and eat a plate full of really healthy food that's good for you to try and get you so you're not skin and bone, because at this point you can see her ribs and her bones sticking out of her body. And I'm like, and she started, swearing at me and telling me she hated me and all this kind of stuff. And I'm looking at her and I'm looking at that bully and I said to her, there is nothing that you can say that will change my mind. You're eating that plate of food and you're staying here for 2 hours. You can't make me. So I grabbed her most precious possession, which was her phone. And before she could even think about it, I just snatched it and I said, well, you're not getting this back until you've done that. And I just thought, that's what you do with bullies. You bully them back.
Yeah.
You show them what they look like. So then I was at your place for dinner, actually. About 6 months after that, the counsellor said, Ruby, there's nothing more I can do to help you. You are doing so amazing. Off you go. What we didn't realise was Ruby saw that as, despite all the pain you're internally feeling right now, this is the best I can do to help you.
This is as good as it's going to get.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
And Ruby freaked. She was like, if this is as good as it's going to get, I don't want in.
No.
So she started saving up her pocket money, going to the dairy and buying Panadol and Nurofen and stocking up.
It worked so good the first time.
She went hard this time.
Oh, really?
We're talking like last time it was a few pills. This time it was packets.
You got a phone call when you were at our place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we went through a Christmas and I'm thinking, yay, getting a Ruby back.
Yeah.
We're all settling in. Everyone, the counsellor's happy with her progress. So I'm like, good on you, Ruby. And thinking everything's fine. And I go to your place for dinner. First time I'd done it in ages too. I literally had just settled into a chair, I think.
I think it was pretty early on, yeah.
I was staying at Amy's. Amy was away on like some field trip, like field days thing. So I had been staying by myself and then you guys had invited me to dinner and I was like, sweet, I don't have to cook. So I went to yours and I just sat down when Micah called and said, Mum, something's wrong with Ruby. And I was like, I know, she's been sick today. She took the day off school because she was sick. She was like, Mum, I don't think that's it. And I was like, oh, Micah, at some point we've got to trust her. We can't always suspect things from her. Like, poor thing. Like, we're always suspecting she's doing something wrong. And she goes, no, Mum, I know, but this is different. There's something about her that's not right. And I was like, well, what's she doing? She goes, just a look on her. I can't explain it, Mum. I can't explain it, but I'm worried. And I'm like, well, where's your dad? And he was in the shower. So I said, wait until he gets out of the shower. Then go and get him and get him to talk to her. So I think I got off the phone and said to you guys, oh, it's fine. It's just a little bit of misunderstanding. Next thing, bring, Mum, she's done it again. She's taken pills. She's just told me. I was like, what? Where is your dad? Still in the shower. Go get him out of the shower. I'm on my way. And like, I think we got a bit more detail. She'd taken them quite a few hours earlier. And she'd taken more than one packet of pills. Yeah. And I knew, based on previous times, that the amount that she's taking, that's borderline, we could lose her.
Oh, okay.
Full liver and kidney failure, lose her. So I'm like, we don't even have time to wait for an ambulance in my head. Get her to the hospital. So Micah gets Steve out of the shower. He goes to get Ruby to put her in the car. She does a runner down the hallway, locks her and barricades herself in a room. So he has to break the door to get into there, manhandle her into the car and starts driving to the hospital. And when he gets onto the motorway, she tries to throw herself out of the car. So he's going 100 minimum. I'd say he'd been going faster because he was trying to get her there quick. she's trying to take herself out by throwing it. And I remember he said, you wouldn't believe it. The thing that actually worked was me saying to her, if you do that one more time, I'm going to kill you myself. And I think the fear of her dad murdering her overrode the fact that she was trying to, do that anyway. Meanwhile, I went to go see Micah. So I went with the kids. He went with Ruby. And then I realised as soon as I got home, I can't stay here. I can't wait here.
Uh-huh.
I can't. So I said to Micah, I'm sorry, you're going to stay here. I've got, Amy's away. I can't get her to come over. And she's like, no, I'm fine. But Mum, and I have to go and be with her. So I got to hospital. When I got to hospital, all I could hear coming down the hallway was vomiting. Steve and her got to hospital. He got her into the A&E and then she gapped it. The security guard had to track her down and bring her back in. So if she's not restrained, she's on guard. But they didn't have to give her anything. Her body just started naturally rejecting everything that was in her stomach. And the poor thing, honestly, she vomited from about 8 o'clock at night. And she didn't stop until 3 a.m.
No
and it was
way.
just constant.
Really?
Yeah. She'd have maybe a 5 minute take a sip of water or two and then but it saved her life. It saved her life. We had to keep her overnight. And if the reading that they're looking at, if it was 20, that it was that was, critical. If she hit 21, she was going into failure. She was at 19. And they'd given her a drug, and if the drug worked, it would repair any damage to her liver. Yeah. But you had to take it in a window, and they were hazy on the window. So it was a borderline thing whether she had destroyed her liver completely and her kidneys, or whether we got her there in time. And it was days later, that they said if you hadn't driven her, if you'd waited for the ambulance, you possibly would have lost your daughter.
Wow.
She would have gone into full. And so I didn't want to leave the hospital. I was scared. I was like, I'm going to close my eyes to go to sleep, and she's going to sneak out of the house, go into the sea and drown herself. I'm not thinking worst case catastrophizing scenario, but also I'm in full alert. Every instinct in me is no, you can't die. You've got a purpose here, and you will destroy this family. So you're not doing it. I do not care what she says or how she says it. You are staying. I'm in full fight. And I knew it was a spiritual battle. More than anything else, I knew I was fighting up here. But I was scared to leave the hospital. And they said, this is actually not the place for her to stay. She's in the children's ward and she's over 13, she's 14, 15. She's got to go. And I'm like, well, send us to the mental health ward then. They're like, there isn't one. She'd have to go to Starship. And the mental health ward up there is full-blown schizophrenics who are 18 years old. She'll come out with more scars than she went in. So Amy said, tell you what, why don't you come to my house? You can sleep in, because my room, I was in a queen-size bed that was kind of shaky frame. So if Ruby even remotely moved, the whole bed would squeak. So me and Ruby, for the next 2 weeks, I think it was, stayed there. Ruby slept in the same bed as me, and I knew her every move. I was not letting that girl out of sight because she was still saying she was disappointed that it hadn't worked. And until I heard that change and it was one day I was taking her to a swimming thing with a party for her friend Gemma, I think. And I was dropping her off and I was picking her up straight afterwards, and the parents were aware of the situation. Everyone knew to let me know and keep her in sight all the time, blah, blah, blah. And I was saying this to her to let her know what was the dealio. And she goes, oh, I'm just so over everyone monitoring my every move. Like, give it a rest already. And I just went, lost. She remembers this too. I'm driving along Papamoa Beach Road and I'm just yelling at her, don't tell me. Maybe you should try to stop taking yourself out. Just lost my nana. Yeah. And she just sat there, to her credit, she just sat there and she didn't look depressed or anything like that. She just nodded, nodded. I got to Bay Wave, parked up, took a deep breath, and then I was like, I'm sorry, Ruby. That was so, I'm so sorry. Because in amongst that, there's tears and snot. And she was like, that's okay, Mum. I've been waiting for that to happen. Like, that's taken a long time. She goes, that's all your anger and fear all rolled up into one coming out all at the same time. But you have, like, not shown any sign of that up until now.
It's funny, kids are smart.
I know. And I was like, well, can we not do that? But the next part was the bit that was the turning point. And we were sitting across the dining table just chit-chatting. And I noticed she was trying. It was almost like she'd given up. But in a healthy way, like she'd given up trying to take herself out, but she's still not happy. But I'm also not trusting at this point. We're micromanaging Ruby, and I'm looking across the table at her, and she's just like, she was really struggling with Steve. Steve was even more so than me, like just, where are you going? What are you doing? Who are you seeing? Blah, blah, blah. And this is now 2 months after the incident. And I said to her, honey, it's going to go on way longer than 2 months. We're not going to feel like we can relax for a long time. I said, I thought you were improving. My mother instincts were so off that I missed this. So now I doubt myself. How did I miss that? What kind of a mother are you? And she was like, you're a working mum who isn't here all the time through no fault of your own. But anyway, and we're sitting across on the dining table, and I knew this was the Lord as I was saying it, but I was speaking it over her life as well. But I said to her, honey, at the moment, you're just not strong enough to fight to stay here. Like, you're just not. But I will not let you take yourself out. And me and your dad are going to try everything humanly possible to fight to keep you here in the spirit and the natural, whatever it takes. So don't care if you're happy or unhappy or sad about it. Doesn't actually matter, because what's more important than anything else is the purpose that you are here on this planet to do. So we'll fight for you. We'll do that for you because you're not strong enough. But I looked at, eyeballed her, and I said, but at some point, you need to start fighting for yourself. And you need to start agreeing with God. And at the time, she just kind of looked at me like it was any old conversation. But when I eyeballed her, I swear I could almost see like a spark. And it was the first time I'd seen
Funny, you
that.
can see in people's eyes, hey?
Yeah. And sorry, it still makes me cry, this part. But yeah, I saw it just go ding, and it gave me this glimmer of hope. And then she went to an Easter camp with her best friend's family and had an encounter with the Lord there. And it just set her free from a lot. The spirit of death left, that was for sure. It's come back for visits, but the darkness that had been sitting on her just poof. She was, because up until that point, she didn't care about the scars. She's like, I don't care. I don't care. And then after she came back from that camp, she was like, what have I done? What have I done? I can't change that. She goes, but it did give me hope, because at camp she heard stories of people who were getting miraculously healed of their scars in worship and stuff. So she really started pressing into the Lord at that point. And yeah, that was kind of the end of that period.
She's a pretty strong girl.
Honestly, I used to say this to a lot of the groups that I talk to through work and stuff about mental health. Say she's my hero. Because out of that dark place, she called out. She got help. Yes, Micah picked up a funny feeling, but Ruby, in the end, just fessed up to her. She could have kept her mouth quiet and probably would have passed away before we would have worked out what was going on. But out of that dark, and I mean dark, these are websites telling you how to kill yourself that she was following.
This generation of kids is putting up a lot of Flipping horrible stuff.
It's horrific and exposed so early to it. And she pulled herself out of that, grasped onto the Lord, and just held on for dear life until she was able to like make some choices herself. And I'm forever grateful for every single person that heard me wail and cry and go on about it. And I appreciate that, Tamsin. I'm thinking of you, Bex. I'm thinking of you and Deb and Mike. My gosh. But it was that support, that prayer, Hannah. Oh my goodness, the amount of prayer Hannah did for my parents. We just used to intercede, fight for it. It was a fight. It was a battle to keep her on this planet.
For.
And I believe so. Yeah. I believe so. It still is worth fighting for. Yeah. Love you, Ruby.
You gotta cry without weeping, talk without speaking, scream without raising your voice. You know I took the poison from the poison stream, then I floated out of here, singing la 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 day, la 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 day, la 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 day. She walks through the streets with eyes painted red, under a black belly of cloud and the rain. Through a doorway, she brings me white golden pearls, stolen from the sea. She is raging, and a storm blows up in her eyes. She will suffer the needle chill. She's running to stand still.